So here's the deal. I've been through this with all the other reindeer. Just want everybody to be on the same page. We've had a lot of supply chain issues that are starting to hit the North Pole, just like everywhere else. Ginger, cinnamon, peppermint, they're all weeks away. I wish I would have known that before I went on my candy cane binge, but yeah, there you have it. So we're working pretty tight. We're pretty thin, but so I very much appreciate you going through with all the other reindeer, putting in the extra effort. And let me ask you this: are you available to work overtime on the weekends? You are? That's fantastic. Thank you. All right, everybody settle down. I know that you're all very excited. So, it's that time of year again. It's our workplace safety video! Yeah, okay, all right, well.
So every year, Santa makes us watch these work safety videos, and they're always very elaborate, and he always brings in all these people to talk about their jobs. And it reminds me, he only works one night every year.
Well, it's that time of year again. The holiday season, the Yuletide, the 12 days of Christmas, which means it is time once again to show the safety training video to the elves. Now, I think of it as less of a video and more of a film, and showing it to the elves is like the premiere. They get really excited, and it's kind of a big deal around here. You know, this year I thought about renting a red carpet, but thought it would clash with my outfit. Is everyone ready? Everyone ready to watch? Huh? Oh, yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, when's lunch? I have a pot of candy to eat.
No. All right, this is very serious, okay? Do you know what happened, in the packing department last year when they didn't go over this stuff? Well, one of the elves got stuck in a present, and then he got put in my bag with the rest of the toys, and when I was delivering them, I could hear him screaming, "If only I had watched the workplace safety videos." And you know where he is now? Huh? He's living in Utah with a family. So, do you want us to all live in Utah? Huh? Do you?
Did you still deliver the present with the elf in it?
Irrelevant. Yes.
I have a follow-up question. So if you could hear the elf all night, then why did you not get the elf out?
I'm really worried about the big guy. There's a lot of pressure on him this time of year. To be honest, he hasn't really been sleeping lately. I'm kind of worried about his sanity. Sanctity?
All right. No, we're missing the point here. All right, the point is, I spent a lot of time on this video, and no, that's not the point either. The point is,
Workplace safety?
yes, that's it. Workplace safety. So, without further ado, our workplace safety video. Take it away, Santa. Thank you, Santa. Safety! It's the difference between a Merry Christmas and a Scary Christmas!
Yeah, Santa, he's a lot.
All right, remember, do not run with candy canes. We all remember the incident that happened a couple years ago. It was terrible, all right? Just don't. The reindeer are on a very strict diet. Please do not give them sweets. Vixen was in a sugar coma for about 3 days. When using the forklift, remember, speed limit is 15 miles an hour. Speed limit is 5 miles an hour. And now, let's meet Corey Bishop, who will talk to us about toy maker safety.
Hi guys, I'm Lindsay, and today I'm here with Corey Bishop, a local toy maker. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty, so why don't we start off with you telling us how you got into this?
I first started making toys for a young man that my wife was babysitting that asked me to make him a race car. So I made him a race car, and it just exploded from there. I've been making trucks and rocking horses and motorcycles, as you can see. And it's just, you know, if I think about something, I try and make it. You know, so.
Sounds really cool. So do you have a process for how you make toys?
Typically, really, there is no rhyme or reason. I don't like to build with any sort of design. I know what I want to do in my head, and I just start building, and it just evolves from there. You know, a lot of the stuffs that I've made were, like this truck, for example, wasn't meant to be that big. It just ended up being that big because I have no measurements. I just start building and I go. So there's really no rhyme or reason especially with the toys.
So kind of along those lines, so they're from scratch then, from your own imagination?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really neat. Very creative.
Thank you.
So like, how long have you been doing this for?
Altogether, probably since I was your age, 9th, 10th grade, you know, somewhere in that neighborhood when I started woodworking in high school, and just been doing it here and there all my life, and the past 7 or 8 years, really a lot. You know, every day I'm down here every day, so it keeps me busy.
For sure. I see you have some pieces here. Do you want to tell us about them?
Well, sure. The rocking horses I do for a cancer charity in Elwood City for young children. They get donated to kids basically like 6 and under that are going through cancer treatments. So all those go over there, and I forgot their name. Club Hope in Elwood City decides who they go to and hands them out. The motorcycle, I did my first one for my grandson, actually, and I've made 3 or 4 of those, that being the 4th one, and I have a couple of those across the country. One's in California, one's in Arizona, one right here in Valencia, and the 4th one. So, and the truck, just a thought that I had about doing something different that I've never done, you know, especially the dragster. I've never done anything like that. So I like to challenge myself as well. You know, so I come up with printed out a picture and just started building. Just went at it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I see you have a in the progress rocking horse. Could you tell us a little bit about what goes into making one of these?
Well, the legs, all the legs, and the stirrups that'll eventually be here, the stirrups and the saddle are all solid wood. The body is made from birch plywood. Everything is glued together to double up and make it that much stronger, glued and nailed. Dowel rods go through the center. If you can see that. Dowel rods here with nails and glue. Just a triple strength to make sure it doesn't fall apart. And then the main and everything up here on the top goes in with yarn, really soft blanket yarn. Yeah, and that's
cool. So you mentioned that you have a process for how you create the wood, or how you get the wood and then create the wood for your different projects.
Yes, I go out and I just scavenge what people are throwing out. So I don't buy brand new cut down wood. I use wood that's already been used and used for a long time. Some of the stuff that could be 70 to 80 years old, and I recycle it. You know, that way more trees aren't being cut down, and I make my own boards from those boards. So.
It's pretty neat, and the details really show in these pieces. They're absolutely amazing.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah. So, what would you say is your favorite project you've worked on up to date?
My motorcycle would probably have to be right up there as my top favorite, just because of it took me so long to build. The first one took about a month, and it's just so much detail, so many layers to it. It took its own shape as I was building it, and that's probably one of my. And not to mention that my grandson has my first one, so that makes it that much more special as well.
Oh,
and he still rides it, so.
Aw, that's perfect. So, did the motorcycle give you any trouble? Were there any pieces that were especially hard to do?
Especially hard, no, but the concept itself was very tedious because I started with a 4x8 piece of wood, 4 foot by 8 foot, and I made that a giant piece of graph paper. So I traced and made all my parts on that wood and then made patterns from it. So then that took me probably 2 weeks of the month that it took to build the motorcycle. And nothing is what I like most about, especially the motorcycles, are that not one is ever the same. You know, so I make every single one a little bit different, just because the process that at that moment might be a little bit different. So that's always special to me too. Everything is unique.
That's really cool. So you mentioned that the motorcycle took you about a month to make. How many toys do you make in about a year?
Oh, that depends on really what I'm asked. You know, I don't make toys just for me to have here. You know, so a lot of times they're to sell, and a few I've given away. So you know, I may only make 4 or 5 a year because of time as well. You know, my other customers requiring my time, you know, as well. You know, the toys I do primarily for fun. You know, it's not something that I.
It's a creative outlet.
Yes, absolutely, creative outlet. That's right.
That sounds cool. So you mentioned you sell your toys often. So where do you get your inspiration?
People have asked me, have I ever made something? That's how the trucks come in, and I've made probably 4 or 5 different tractor trailers, because somebody said, "Did you ever make one of these?" And no, but I'm going to now, you know, and I just do, and I built the tractor trailers and dump trucks and bulldozers as well. Somebody said, "Have you ever made a dump truck?" And so I made a dump truck and dumped in the whole bit. You know, so,
Yeah.
You know, I draw a lot of inspiration from other people. You know, it's not just my own thoughts and my own creative thoughts. A lot of people have asked me for things, and I've said, sure, I'll make it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Up for a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any safety precautions here in your workshop?
Safety is always a big issue. Hearing protection and eye protection are the 2 biggest, because there's always dust in the air. There's always stuff flying, no matter what tool you use. If it's on, there's wood and sawdust flying in some direction in this. So yes, hearing protection is also key, because of anything sustained, any prolonged, loud. They're all loud. So yeah, I wear earmuffs as well to combat the loud. So.
Yeah. What has been your biggest challenge overall about making toys?
I really don't know that I have a specific answer for that one.
No worries.
Yeah.
I was just seeing if you had any hurdles to get over when it comes to making toys or not.
Well, everything has its own hurdle. There's always a project. You know, every other project could cause you problems with little things. I do walk away from a project at times, because if I keep trying and trying and trying and things aren't working, that's how things end up breaking. You end up hurt. You know, so we'll put a project aside just because it's causing some sort of issue, whether parts don't fit or something or one part in particular keeps breaking. You know, the little parts, especially wheels, they're so small that they do end up breaking. You know, putting a round edge on them. My router table could shoot it across the room if I'm not holding on to it well enough, and things break and stuff like that. So every project can pose its own challenges, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Unique set of challenges for a unique challenge.
Yeah.
What type of tools do you use in your workshop, and which ones do you use most often?
I have probably a little bit of everything. I have several routers, router table, jointer behind me, a planer that makes everything flat. The most used saw in probably any wood shop would be the table saw, because no matter what needs cut, it starts there. You know, no matter how big or small you're making anything, the raw lumber you start with has to be cut down on a table saw to size. So that is probably the most used piece of equipment in here.
At any point in your design process or your creation of the toys, do you use the engineering design process?
I don't. I don't use any kind of engineering design. I don't have an engineering degree. I build from inspiration, as we talked about. You know, inspiration of my own thoughts, my own creative thoughts. I'll write some things down here and there, but for the most part, it's just I come down and I just start building. Yeah.
So you said that you have parts break and stuff, and you'll have to revisit them at a later point in time. Mm-hmm. Do you you'll test and redefine and redo the circle to create them, or how do you go about that?
Well, a lot of the time, when pieces are breaking or I have to walk away from a project, most often it's my own frustration that's causing the problem. So I really don't have to, redesign or figure out another way. It's usually just my own frustration that's making a part break, or, like I said, fly across the shop. So leaving a project sit for a day or two, calming down and staying out of the shop, just lets everything lets the dust settle, as you could say, in the shop, and revisit. And things tend to just go right back to normal after you do that.
You can come in with a fresh pair of eyes and a fresh brain.
Absolutely.
Take a new look at the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you create the moving parts, and how do you deal with those different circumstances?
Well, there's only a few moving parts on my trucks and cars, and that's only wheels. And usually they're just different sized dowel rods, 4 axles that go straight through, as you can see here. Those go straight through the entire block of wood, and just runs free like a regular axle would. There's no glue on the inside, just on the wheel where it connects to the dowel rod.
Do you take commissions for your toys?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody can contact me on Facebook through Handcrafted by Corey, or Corey Bishop. I will answer both direct messages. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey, for your time and for sharing your story with us. We learned lots today.
My pleasure.
Alrighty, Santa, back to you.
Santa, does that mean that we don't have to follow the engineering design process?
No. Oh, that Corey, man. He reminds me of me when I got started. Funny thing is I got him his first saw. Old Santa likes to have a good laugh, just like you, but please don't tip the reindeer, all right? It's very hard for them to get up after a long night, all right? They just want to be left alone, eat their carrots. Just stop it. No riding the conveyor belts. I can't believe I have to say this again after the incident with Jingle and Jangle. Just not even after hours. Don't. All right. When operating the Arose Such a Clatter company dictates that there must be one elf at the bottom with 2 points of contact so that the other one can walk up safely and not tip the ladder.
False. Everyone knows a good engineering process requires 3 points of contact to make a stable ladder. 2 elves? Pfft.
All right, let's get back on track and talk to Scott Becker from the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, and he will train us about trolleys.
Pennsylvania Trolley Museum in Washington, PA. This is Scott Becker. He is the executive director here.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Welcome, we're excited.
So we're going to talk about trolleys today and trolley technology, and looking at history that goes back to the 1880s.
Oh.
So a long time ago. So 1888, the first electric streetcar is running in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And there was a fellow named Frank Sprague. He figured out how to make the technology work. And then trolleys came to Pittsburgh 2 years later, so 1890. And we're talking really the dawn of the electric age. So before you had electric streetcars, you really didn't use electricity. So people used candles or natural gas for lighting, that kind of thing. So trolleys really heralded in the electric age. And actually the little sparks off the wire over here, is where the trolley wheel meets the wire. When people saw the sparks, they called them sparkers, because they'd never really seen electricity before except for a lightning storm. So this was a whole new thing for them.
I see.
And it really revolutionized the way people lived, because before the electric streetcar, you basically lived across the street or close by, walking distance from where you worked. So if you worked in a steel mill, you had to live across the street.
Yeah.
People didn't like doing that. They didn't like the dust and everything. So the streetcar was low-cost transportation where they could live in the suburbs or live farther away or up on the hill, because the steel mills tended to be down the valley by the rivers. So it really revolutionized how people live, living patterns. If you look at a map of Pittsburgh and you look at all the different neighborhoods, they were connected by streetcars.
Yeah.
Places like Wexford and Warrendale and places like that, they were connected by electric streetcars as well, the North Hills,
Yeah.
where you folks are from.
It's really neat. So that came after trains.
Yeah, trains started around early 1830s. They were steam trains in those days. So trolleys were the first use of electricity.
Right. Okay.
And then later on, you had electric trains too.
You mentioned the electricity. So the electricity comes from the wire itself?
Sure. So you have a copper trolley wire. It has 600 volt DC. DC means direct current. So what you have in your house is AC, or alternating current. So they used DC in those days. They felt it was an easy way to use electricity. There's a little wheel on the end of a pole, and that's the trolley wheel, and it trolls along the wire. So if any of you have ever gone trolling for fishing or anything, it's the same idea. It kind of drags along the wire, just like trolling. So that's where the word trolley comes from.
Oh, okay.
So it goes down to this pole base on the roof, and the pole base has big springs on it, and that actually keeps the trolley wheel pushed against the wire. And it's about 18 pounds.
Yeah.
We actually use a fish scale to measure how much tension it has against the wire. But that's very important, because if there's not enough tension, it's going to bounce around, it's going to fall off the wire, and you don't want to do that when you're going down the track.
Yeah.
So it goes through the trolley, And it goes down to the controller.
Okay.
Okay, so the controller is like this right here. This is the controller, okay? And when you move the controller clockwise, you actually control the amount of electricity going into the motors. Well, how do they do that? Well, because in the first few points, they call it, some of the electricity, or most electricity, is going through these grids, which are called resistor grids. And that electricity gets dissipated as heat energy. And then some electricity goes in there. And the more and more you move this, I'll just kind of spin over here, as you move this controller clockwise like this, there's less and less electricity in the grids and more in the motor. Okay, so I was just talking about the controller, which causes the car to go forward and to speed up using the resistor grid. So this is the controller right here. So you usually have this in your left hand. You also have to stop the car. That's very important. So this over here is the brake handle. And in most trolleys, early trolleys, they used either a handbrake like this, called a gooseneck handbrake, or later on they used air brakes, George Westinghouse. So that was very typical. And the modern trolleys today use dynamic electric brakes. So we're looking at a typical trolley from the 19-teens, 20s. This is the way they were set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down the track. This is our trolley operator simulator, which is pretty cool, very popular. And we're going to release the brakes and move the handle all the way over to the left like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to start the car. So here we go down the track. And the more you move this handle clockwise, the faster you can go. See how we're going pretty fast now? We're going really fast now. That's full on. So when it's full on, there's no electricity going through the resistor grids at all. It's all going directly into the motor. Okay? Motors, I should say. So if I shut off like this, there's no more electricity coming out at all, and then I'm going to put the brake on by moving it over to the right. You see how it's slowing down? So the air brakes are stopping the car. And go to full stop.
Where do your trolleys come from?
So we have 50 trolleys in our collection.
Oh, okay.
We get them from primarily Pennsylvania, hence the name Pennsylvania Trolley Museum. But we do actually have a few trolleys from Ohio and West Virginia. We have the world-famous streetcar named Desire from New Orleans, Louisiana. And we also have an open trolley that came all the way from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Oh, wow.
And but it was originally built in Philadelphia as a kit, so it started out in Pennsylvania. So, and we have a work trolley from Boston. So we have mostly though Pennsylvania trolleys. And one thing that's unique about us, and this is really technical, but our track gauge, the distance between the rails, is what they call Pennsylvania broad gauge, and it's 6 inches wider than railroad tracks.
So are all your cars retired, or?
Well, we have 50 trolleys, it's a great question, and 20 of them operate.
Okay.
So you have a long to-do list? A really long to-do list. We have 30 trolleys waiting to be restored.
Okay. So what goes into restoring the trolleys?
You know, restoration is an interesting topic because it can be a rehabilitation where it doesn't need as much, or it's a take it apart, put it back together restoration. But these projects can last anywhere from 5 to 15 years, and they're pretty costly, so we have to raise the money. We're a nonprofit museum. We rely on grants and donations for our projects.
Do you guys have like blueprints that you use to help restore your trolleys, or are you kind of just going in?
We do have some blueprints. We actually have archives that we literally have flat files full of blueprints, and those are very helpful.
Yeah.
But we do have to do reverse engineering at times. So what's reverse engineering? It's taking an old part and it's duplicating it.
Right.
one of the things we're very interested in getting more into is 3D printing.
Oh, okay.
Because then we could actually make parts quicker that way. Because when you're looking for trolley parts, you don't go down the street to an auto parts store and get
Right.
trolley parts. You have to either get them from other museums or you make them from scratch. We do have a warehouse full of trolley parts, and that helps.
There you go.
But we don't have everything, so
Yeah.
we do have to make things. You know, the one thing you have to understand is that when the trolleys were retired, they were worn out.
Yeah.
The old joke is they were fully depreciated on the trolley company's books, and in reality, they were fully depreciated. So we have to overcome a lot of years of use, and the salt they use in the streets, they rusted out a lot of the trolleys and caused a lot of damage, and we have to replace the steel that's in bad shape and that kind of thing. So it's challenging, but our volunteers love working on them, and it's a challenge to them, and they do great work in bringing these cars back to life.
Yeah. That's actually really cool. We do a lot of 3D printing when we are designing our robots, so to think that that's able to be put into kind of a bigger use, like for trolleys, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So you've taken the new technology to help restore the old.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's pretty cool is that we're pretty proud of this. Since 2009, we've had almost 200 solar panels that we use to produce electricity.
Right.
And we actually use some of that electricity to power these antique streetcars.
Oh.
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So the trolleys are green.
Ooh, there you go. And I guess they were greener back in their time than the steam engines.
They were.
So-
They actually, it's kind of interesting you bring that up, because in a lot of cases they had anti-smoke laws, and they forced the railroads to convert the steam engines to electric locomotives and electric cars.
Okay.
Railroad cars. So that was very common in the big cities like New York City,
Right.
places like that, Chicago.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about trolley safety?
The early trolleys had a two-man crew. So what they did was, in the early days, they had two men, and the safety controls were rather limited. What they did have is they had what they call a lifeguard, which is kind of like a basket under the car, and if someone got hit by the trolley, they'd get scooped up by the baskets. They wouldn't get run over.
Oh.
But later on, they wanted, after World War I, labor costs were going very high, people were being paid more, and so they wanted to limit it to one person running the car. And the way they did that is they put what they call a dead man feature on the controller. So you had to have the handle down when you operated. If you left the handle up, the air brakes would go into emergency and would stop right away. So the reason they did that is if the operator became incapacitated, heart attack, whatever, and left the handle up, then the car would come to a stop. So that was the safety appliances that they put in at that time.
So why are trolleys and trains so special during Christmas time?
So Pittsburgh was a classic streetcar city, and the department stores downtown, and you had Kaufman's, you had Orange, you had Gimbel's, those were the big ones. They all wanted to attract people to their stores, and so they would have big toy train layouts.
Oh.
And they would sell trains, like Lionel trains or whatever. And they'd have these layouts set up, and they'd also have Santa there. So it was very common for families to get on the streetcar and go downtown to see Santa, see the toy trains, that sort of thing. So that was like a Christmas holiday tradition. So at the Trolley Museum here, at Christmas time, we have a big toy train, which is kind of, we got the idea from that because of the tradition of taking the streetcar to see the toy trains.
It's very neat. Did trolleys ever, when it snowed, did trolleys ever have to like stop? Or were they pretty good at kind of getting through that?
Well, they were pretty good at getting through that. They were heavy.
Yeah.
They were steel wheel on steel rails. They could drop sand in front of the wheels. They had sand boxes, and that would give them more traction if the rails got icy, things like that. They also had snow sweepers, and they were trolleys that had big rattan brooms on them.
Oh, okay.
And the brooms were actually operated by trolley motors inside the car, connected to the brooms by a chain.
Oh.
big bicycle chain. And so Pittsburgh had over 50 of those snow sweepers.
Oh.
So when it started snowing, they would start dispatching the snow sweepers from all parts of the city to keep the tracks open. And not only keep the tracks open, but keep the roads open. Because
Right.
they were required by their franchise with the city or township to keep the streets clean where the trolleys ran.
Interesting. So they were quite responsible for a big part of transportation during that time. Huh. It's really neat.
So, one thing that's interesting about the museum is that we're mostly staffed by volunteers. And the museum's a great place to come and volunteer. And we can actually teach you how to operate a trolley or to fix a trolley. And we invite people that are watching this today to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
And we have a great website, it's patrolley.org. Our season tends to run beginning of April. It's actually 2 weeks before Easter to the middle of December. That's what we'll be doing in 2022. So we invite people to come down and visit us. We're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the spring. We're open from Tuesday to Sunday, June, July, and August, and then back to Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the fall. And it's a great place to come and experience living history, because not only do you get to look at the trolleys, you get to ride them.
Oh, okay.
A 4-mile scenic ride down the track. We're adding more facilities. We're working on building a trolley street, a brick street right now at our East Campus. We have big display buildings that give you guided tours. There's really a lot going on at the museum. It's a great time to get involved.
It sounds very cool. So yeah, you guys should definitely come check it out. We are very thankful that you let us be here, and you know, you gave us your information and just opening up your space for us.
Happy to do it, and you know, we're an educational institution, and we're happy to partner with groups like yours to help people understand the history and the technology of the trolley era.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We hope you learn more about trolleys and trolley safety. Back to you, Santa.
Did you just want to ride the trolleys?
No. Were you not paying attention? It was very instructional and educational. No. Yeah, you caught me. I just wanted to go there to ride the trains. The Pennsylvania Trolley Museum is fantastic. It's one of my favorite places to go. And remember, according to the Elf Employee Handbook, your quarterly Elf improvement plans have been posted in the break rooms. And I can't believe we have to say this again. Red Planet Soda is for Santa, okay? Not for elves. You know how crazy you get. It's for Santa, the big cheese, all right?
We elves love Red Planet Soda. Santa says it makes us hyper, but I don't think so. Hey, is that a narwhal?
When you're testing a light bulb on a Christmas tree, use gloves, all right? Don't lick your fingers and do anything like that. You're gonna get shocked. Why do I have to do this every year? And remember, who's the boss? Great. Okay. All right. So this works in perfectly. Well, okay. First, are you okay? You all right? He's okay. All right, so he's okay. This will lead us into our first aid segment. This is the best one yet. I mean, everyone is loving it. They're laughing, high-fiving. It's fantastic. I love it. They love it.
You know, I really only just come into work for the food.
Now, let's go to Quality EMS to learn about first aid and safety.
We're here at Quality Emergency Medical Services with Keith and Heather, who are going to talk to us about hypothermia, first aid, and holiday safety. So Keith, how did you get into emergency medical services?
So I've been a paramedic for about 10, 11 years. I moved here from Ireland to go to school at the Centre for Emergency Medicine. I graduated there, and I've worked in EMS ever since.
So in the North Pole, it's very cold. And one thing that I know can be commonly happen in the cold is hypothermia. So what exactly is hypothermia?
So hypothermia is the dropping of the body core temperature below its normal level. So with hypothermia, the best thing is prevention rather than cure, like a lot of things. So if you're going outside and you know it's cold, make sure you check the weather and know what you're going to be facing, and then dress accordingly and plan accordingly. If for whatever reason something changes and the clothing that you have is not appropriate or your equipment fails, the best thing to do is remove the person from the cold environment, if that's possible. Once you have that achieved, the next thing you need to do is remove any cold, wet, damp clothing from the person and try and warm them up with some warm clothes if you have them available. A great thing to have in your kit is a emergency space blanket. Those foil blankets, they work really, really well. Also, if you're trying to warm somebody and you have heat packs, the places you can place them is along the neck, under the armpits, and in the groin. But with those hot packs, you need to make sure you don't put it directly on skin because it can burn the patient. Some signs and symptoms, you would see like blueness around the lips, fingernails, that kind of stuff. Shivering, obviously they will be complaining of being cold. But as it progresses and they get colder and colder and colder, you'll start to see them not acting right, mumbling, saying the wrong things, using wrong words, and that's when you know it's gotten really, really severe at that point.
If you or someone in your group is showing symptoms of hypothermia, when is the right time to call, like, you guys?
Okay, so if it's just simple shivering and putting on a jacket would solve the problem, obviously you don't need to call us. But if you're concerned or you're not sure, absolutely give us a call. It's better to call us, let's get there and go, hey, no, you're good. You guys have already taken care of it. You've put on a jacket, you've removed yourself from the cold, than waiting till it's too late for us to be able to help.
So if someone is hypothermic, would giving them like warm fluids help them recover?
Yes, it absolutely can, and it can really help. Just depends on the situation. So before you give somebody warm fluids, you want to make sure that they're able to swallow appropriately and protect their own airway. So they have to be acting right, using the right words, you know, completely alert and oriented. The warm fluid, you want to make sure it's not caffeinated and that it's non-alcoholic as well. Very, very important that it's not caffeinated and non-alcoholic.
So would having something like hot chocolate still be like beneficial after being in the cold?
Yeah, hot chocolate makes everything better. It's not overly caffeinated, so you should be okay with hot chocolate.
So let's say, for example, someone is climbing up a ladder putting Christmas lights up, and they fall off. What should they and like the people around them do in that sort of situation?
Yeah, it's something we see quite frequently around the holidays. So the number one thing is, if possible, try not to move them. That's not the be-all and end-all. If for whatever reason they're in more danger where they're laying, you should move them. So say if the ladder is going to fall on them or something else is going to fall on top of them, you may need to move them to prevent further injury. But if nothing like that exists, or it's not very, very cold outside, you can just keep them calm, cover them with a blanket, reassure them, and obviously call 911.
So in the cold and it's snowy and the snow makes it harder to travel, what can people do to make it easier that if there is an emergency, that you can get to them faster?
So nobody's going to like this answer. Unfortunately, it's shoveling your drive and making sure there's no snow or ice on your steps that lead into your house. If you're not able to do that for whatever reason, we do have the ability to remove the snow, and we call on other local resources like road crews, fire department, police, to get us where we need to go. and help shovel snow if we have to shovel snow to get you out of your house. But if you can have that done, that would help us out greatly.
A lot of people around the holidays might be making cookies and they could burn themselves. What are some ways, like, how would you treat a burn?
Okay, so if it's just a simple burn on your hand, you know, from the cookie sheet or whatever that may be, you just want to run it under kind of lukewarm, cool water. You don't want to place it in ice or anything like that at all. Just run it under some cool water for about 10-15 minutes, and then just reevaluate at that point. Whether you need to call an ambulance or go to your emergency room or whatever the case may be. Some pitfalls that people fall into are they put things like oil, butter, yogurt, things like that to try and cool the burn down, and that's absolutely incorrect. They believe they're trying to take the heat out of the burn, and it just doesn't work like that. The oil and the butter just help cook the skin, which makes things worse, and then it just opens up avenues for infection.
So at what point with burns should someone seek further medical attention?
Anytime you have a large burn, or anytime you're not sure, or if anybody's in extreme pain. Burns to like the face, hands, feet, perineum, joints, things like that are all very, very serious burns, so they should all be medically evaluated. But again, anytime you're not sure, absolutely call 911, and again, we can come check you out and maybe bring you to the hospital.
What is something that if someone has to ride an ambulance for whatever reason, especially kids, you would like to tell them?
The coolest thing about riding an ambulance is you get to ride on a comfy bed like this, and you get to ride backwards, and you get to look out these big windows out the back of the ambulance. Once you're in the ambulance, you're going to have to put on a seatbelt like everybody does in a vehicle, and that's just to keep you safe. Then what we'll do is pretty much what they do at the doctor's office. We'll put the cuff on your arm, check your blood pressure, put some stickers on your chest, have a look at your heart, check your oxygen, all that kind of stuff. And if you need it, we may give you some medicine on the way to the hospital too.
Right, so I see we have a CPR mannequin here. Could you demonstrate how someone would do CPR?
So the most important thing when you realize somebody needs CPR is to call 911 and get an ambulance on the way. So with today's technology, you can put somebody on speakerphone, or if there's somebody with you, have them call 911 and then start compressions immediately. So we've learned over the last couple of years through research that compressions are what saves people. So what you want to do is you can just put your hands in the center of the chest, just between the nipple line, and what they say is push hard and fast, about 100 times a minute. So there's some songs that people use to try and keep that time. Staying alive is kind of everybody's favorite, and you don't really have to worry about ventilations. So a lot of people have learned CPR where you blow into the person's mouth using a mask and give the compressions. But if you just want to do compressions only, that will absolutely help save somebody's life.
So could you teach me how to do CPR?
Absolutely, yep, let's go. You're going to interlace your fingers and use the palm of your hand here to push right in the center, okay?
All right.
And then what you want to do is you want to get your shoulders over your hands and use the weight of your body. You don't want to push like this. You want to like lock out your elbows and you push like that. There you go, perfect. And so like, perfect.
And then, if you're with multiple people and you're doing CPR and you start getting tired, what do you kind of want to do in that situation?
So if you've multiple people, what you want to do is swap out every 2 minutes maximum. If somebody's getting tired before 2 minutes, that person just needs to speak up and say, hey, I'm getting tired, we need to swap out. Because good compressions is what saves people. If you're doing compressions that aren't deep enough or aren't fast enough, you may impact the outcome of the cardiac arrest. If you're on your own, you just want to do your best till the ambulance gets there. And if somebody comes along halfway through, just have them jump in immediately and you swap out.
So when you're swapping out, how do you want to do that? Is there a specific way?
Absolutely. So communication is key. You want to minimize what's known as hands-off time. Hands-off time is the time spent where you're not providing compressions on the chest. So if somebody comes to help you, you need to just talk to them for a couple of seconds beforehand, say, hey, listen, we're going to swap out if you want to get on the other side of the person, and then just count down, okay, we're going to swap in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then immediately swap. and have the next person take over, just to minimize that hands-off time where you're not providing chest compressions.
What should a person who's doing CPR expect when the EMTs are out?
So the first thing to expect would be a very grateful crew. By you performing bystander CPR, you've given this person a huge chance at survival. We know that CPR is very tiring, so one of the first things we'll immediately do is take over and start delivering compressions with a fresh set of hands. And then what you're going to see is us doing advanced life support care. So we'll be putting the patient on a cardiac monitor, starting IVs, giving drugs, and maybe giving some electrical therapy to the patient to try and bring them back. It's fairly chaotic. There's a lot of stuff that would happen, but it's something that we train and practice a lot on to improve everybody's outcome. But at that point, you've done all the hard work, and it's up to us then at that point.
So for the holidays, is there any advice or like preventative measures that you would recommend for people?
Just remember, it's been a long year for everybody with COVID. People have had a really tough, stressful year dealing with everything that's been going on. Just be considerate, keep that in mind, and enjoy your holidays together.
All right, thank you so much, Keith and Heather from Quality Emergency Medical Services, for teaching us about holiday safety. Back to you, Santa.
Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away.
It worked! He's alive! We did it! And remember, wreaths are for decoration, not for ultimate frisbee. And my hat is not a target. Any elves that are standing on top of each other to try and impersonate Santa is not only frowned upon, it is a fireable offense. Elves impersonating each other is completely allowed. Well, as long as it's funny. All right, and we have gotten to the final, most important topic. This is so important, I cannot stress this enough. Wait, I'm in the middle of filming a thing.
It's important.
Just later, okay?
You ran away from me earlier.
I promise. I will sign it at some point.
Okay.
All right. All right. What was I saying? It doesn't matter. All right, fantastic. Well, I feel fully trained, and now I'm ready to have a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year. I guess you could say that that's a Christmas wrap. All right, yes, we did it. All right, well, I think that's it for today's. Okay, yeah. Let's get after it. Let's have a Merry Christmas and let's be safe out there, yeah?
Hey Santa, can you sign this please? I've been asking you all day.
Fine.
Not a very neat signature. I guess it'll do.
One more thing. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.